Hello, 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 hello. Welcome to Sound Off Sports. I'm your host, Mike Davis, joined right now by my main man, James Edward Barrickman. The fourth, James, haircut looking good.
Thank you, sir.
Pink dress shirt looking good.
I get cleaned up from time to time.
I love it. You know, there's a lot of stuff going on right now in the NFL. Obviously, we're going to start with this big Davante Adams trade. A lot of fans saw this happening. He's been on that injury report, not playing, maybe a lot of turmoil and tension going on within the organization and him. But now Davante Adams is being shipped out to the New York Jets. He's going to team up again with his old buddy, Aaron Rodgers, who he played with in Green Bay. A-Raj is super happy about this. Davante's happy about this. The question is, what does this mean, though, for the Raiders franchise? We asked everybody at home, we asked you guys what you felt about this decision and what it really means for the state of the silver and black. James, let's kick this off right off the bat. Let's hear what somebody had to say about this trade.
I just think that's the biggest mistake the Raiders could actually have done, traded him to the New York Jets. So in my perspective, I think the Raiders are going to go downhill for the rest of the season.
All right, thank you so much for giving us a buzz, John. Listen, so John says it's the worst thing that this organization could have done.
I don't know how you could come to that conclusion if you're John.
He must be a super big Davante Adams fan. And listen, from his perspective, let's identify kind of where he's coming from. Yes, if John's thinking this team is competing and trying to win today, that is the worst thing they could have done.
In which case, John needs to check himself because they're not close to that.
And he might be, a hopeless romantic when it comes to this team and what
football.
They can really do in terms of even making the playoffs. But I think, obviously, this is a move that GM Tom Telesco has made, and it's an admission that the Raiders cannot compete for a Super Bowl right now. And I don't think, if you think that, then you got to get your eyes checked because they just can't, frankly, right now. And the truth is, in today's NFL, in competitive, professional sports, in the landscape, the worst thing you can do, you tell me this all the time, James, the worst thing you can do is be in no man's land, is be in the middle.
Yeah, you can't be in the middle.
Not be, the worst team, but not being the best team, and you're not really in a position to get a high draft pick. You're not in a position to go to the playoffs. You're in no man's land, and that's the worst place to be. And GM Tom Telesco is going to start trading away assets so they can start thinking more future.
This is the Raiders' opportunity to finally get that quarterback that they've been missing since Derek Carr. Obviously, players, coaches, they don't tank. They never will because they're constantly putting out tape for their next job. But if you are Mark Davis or, these higher ups within the Raiders organization, you should be praying that you lose as many games as possible this year because you cannot keep going forward year after year with quarterbacks like Jimmy Garoppolo, like Aiden O'Connell, Gardner Minshew, Jarrett Stidham. We've seen a gamut since they got rid of Derek Carr and let him go.
Yeah, it's not a good look, and that's why he's being truthful in what the situation is. You need a GM who can look himself and the team in the mirror and say, this is who we are, and this is where we need to get to, and how are we going to do that? And I think if you're a Raiders fan today, you got to be thankful that GM Tom Telesco is making those decisions and those choices because he's not lying to himself. And you can't lie to yourself if you're going to win in the NFL. It's just not going to happen. So I think I would agree with John. If they start trading away guys like Max Crosby, I'm not on board for that, So I think there's certain types of – there's two people –
Do you think that Max Crosby, who's 27 right now, is going to be a part of the Raiders' future success if and when they do get a quarterback?
This is what I said on Sin City Beat. I think quarterback and edge rusher are the two most important positions in the NFL. No question.
I could get behind that there, yeah.
Max Crosby is a top 3 edge rusher in the NFL. Okay? He's the face of the team. He's the identity of the team. I'm a huge intangibles guy. Beyond what he does from a statistical standpoint, this dude has the greatest motor. He's a great dude in the community. He's a guy you want in the locker room. You lose the team if you trade Max Crosby. Okay, there's no 2 first-round draft picks would not be worth it for trading away Max Crosby. That's how I feel, because here's what I think. You posed a great question, James. Can he be a part of a team that's doing damage for the future?
I'm just saying, you look at where the Raiders are at right now.
Here's my answer. Look what Jaden Daniels has done with the Commanders. Look what C.J. Stroud has done with the Houston Texans last year. If you get in a position where you draft a guy in the top 3, you get the Cam Ward, you get the Shedeur Sanders, you get the Carson Beck, whoever that may be, if you hit on the quarterback,
that's a 1-year turnaround.
That's a 1-year turnaround at the state of quarterback play in today's collegiate landscape transitioning to the NFL. Burrow changed the course of the Bengals right away.
Of course.
So if you hit, then you want Max Crosby on your team because he's a top 10 defensive player in the NFL.
I think that's a great point.
So that's how I look at it.
Because, looking at where they're at right now, sitting at 2-4, they're going to be, my fear for the Raiders organization and their fans is that they aren't bad enough to get one of their guys. They missed out last year because they had that same problem. But to your point where it's like, if they do, let's say they win 4 or 5 games, they get into the top 10, you land a Shedeur Sanders, you land a Quinn Ewers, you land a Cam Ward, Carson Beck. I don't know about Carson Beck, but I'm saying one of these guys could change the future of the franchise in one season, but you also need to have the head coach right.
You got it, and that's a big point. But here's my question. I want to just play on this for another second. How many more teams in the NFL at this juncture need a quarterback? Like, that's the thing. This is a huge draft class when it comes to quarterbacks. There's a lot of guys out there. It's very similar to last year with McCarthy and Drake May and Jaden Daniels and Caleb Williams. So how many teams, James, actually need a quarterback right now in the NFL? Because the thing is, they might be able to be in that 5-6 win total and still get their guy, because it's different than last year. There's not too many teams right now that are still looking for the quarterback where they would use a top 10 pick on that guy.
Let's name some that could. I have 2 off the top of my head. Cleveland.
Yes.
They're going to be looking for a quarterback. They're sitting at 1-5 right now. The Giants are probably going to be looking for a quarterback. The Raiders. Who else are we looking at that's kind of in that?
Carolina potentially, but are they going to go off the Bryce Young thing?
Yeah, I guess Carolina's probably on that list too.
But so it's, so there's about 3 or 4 that are really in that mix now.
But I like the point you make.
Yeah.
They could get in that 10 to 12 range and still have a shot to land potentially their guy.
The thing that's always difficult is, like, listen, if Jaden Daniels was your guy and you miss out on Jaden Daniels and you're forced to take Bo Nix, that doesn't help you turn around the franchise in 1 year. So I think the difference...
Don't force something just to force something as a general manager.
The difference this time around is, like, if you were kind of feeling Michael Penix last year, but you really wanted Jaden Daniels, this go around, you got to go for Jaden Daniels. You're not settling for the Michael Penix Jr. If Cam Ward is the guy you've identified, this is the dude we need on our team, or if it's Shedeur, you got to trade everything to go up and get him.
Especially if you're the Raiders specifically, that's what you're saying. Yeah, 100%.
So that's what I think, because I don't think you can settle if you're at 6 and just say, which is the quarterback that falls to us, and we'll roll with that. That's not what you can't do that anymore. This year, it's a totally different scenario. You got to identify the quarterback that can transform your program, the guy who can transform the franchise and make it a 1-year turnaround, and then you got to go get him. It's basic.
And that's why I think this whole Davante Adams thing is great. It's a great start for the Raiders, because I'm glad that they are being honest with themselves. Like, we are not in a position to win this year, and we're not going to be in a position to win as long as we keep doing what we're doing at the quarterback position. So Davante Adams, who's 31, get him out of the building. He didn't want to be here anyway, because honestly, you owe it to him to ship him to a contender. He's not going to be part of your future plans of success, given his age.
He turns 32 in December.
Get your picks for Davante. Granted, it's only a conditional third. It could become a second, but this is the right direction. And if they were to trade a guy like Max Crosby, who you could get multiple first-round picks for, I would honestly be okay with that, but I think if you're Mark Davis, you lose the fan base because that is the heartbeat of the team and the face of the franchise right now.
But so let me ask you this, James. So, and I agree with you, but if the Detroit Lions, Aiden Hutchinson just went down, he was having a monster season. He was gonna front runner for Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah.
At this point, he had led the league in sacks. He has that awful injury that was just gruesome to watch. He's out for the year now. Lions look great. They're competing for Super Bowls. They need an edge rusher. Let's just say they want Max Crosby. You can see how Dan Campbell would love a dude like Max Crosby.
He's from the area, too.
It's like peanut butter and jelly, Dan Campbell and Max Crosby. Two guys would love each other. If the Lions, Brad Holmes, the GM, a tremendous GM, one of our first shows on SOS, we spoke about him. If he offered 2 first-round picks to Tom Telesco for Max Crosby right now, would you take it if you're Tom Telesco? Because here's what I'm thinking. The Lions are a good team. Where are they going to be drafted? You're not using that late first-round pick you get from them, especially if they add Max Crosby in the mix. That's not getting you the quarterback you want. You're going to have to pair that with something else and couple that with certain things. So
to trade up to potentially
exactly. So
I think you'd absolutely have to think about it.
Yeah.
If you're Tom Telesco, I'm just looking at the Raiders' recent draft history. What do first-round picks mean to the Raiders? And granted, Tom Telesco's only been there, this is his second year on the job?
No, it's his first. This was his
first full season. Yeah,
so
right. It'll be his second draft.
Right. So his first draft, he drafted Brock Bowers, stud.
Right. No question. But I'm looking at the history of it. But Tom Telesco obviously is a different animal. He's not Mike Mayock or the guys of the past. To your point that you made earlier, you keep a guy like Max Crosby, hit on a quarterback, a rookie quarterback, you want Max Crosby on your team. You just look at how, like you said, how it happened with the Commanders, with the Texans. Let's say you do hit on that quarterback and you don't have Max Crosby. What are we looking at there? Are we regretting that decision at the end of the day?
I mean, it's a fascinating thing. Let's hear. We got another voicemail from somebody. Let's hear what someone else has to say at home. I believe we spoke to John first. Let's hear what Dave has to say.
Now, as far as Davante Adams going to New York, Jets playoff hopes are alive now. First, second round, no AFC championship game. My bad, game for sure. First or second round, they'll make no AFC championship game.
All right. Thank you so much, Dave, for that great call. Yeah, so listen, he's totally right. I mean, this transforms the Jets team.
Does it?
I think it does because, listen, you're going all in, which I think you have to do. You got Aaron Rodgers.
No question.
You got Breece Hall. You got a stud defense. You already got Garrett Wilson. Now Davante Adams puts you in that rhythm that Aaron Rodgers has not been able to find so far in New York. And by bringing in his buddy, a dude who's a future Hall of Famer, you got to think this is going to ignite something within this organization. If this doesn't propel them to the playoffs, then everybody should be fired. The whole situation, this is it. So to me, I just think when I look at the roster, you got Garrett Wilson, you got Davante Adams, you got Breece Hall, you got the stud defense that maybe they're not playing the way they did last year, but they're still a good unit. At the end of the day, it's Aaron Rodgers, 4-time MVP. The guy still he's making those throws. He's still making.
He's not been great, but the arm still looks electric.
The storm, it's more so the supporting cast, and I think Garrett Wilson, unfortunately, might be a better 2 than he's a 1. And there is something to be said.
It'll
about
definitely be nice to take some pressure off.
Yes,
of him, no question.
So I think this is going to probably reinvigorate this franchise. Jeff Ulbrich, who's the new coach there, he already took Hackett off of play calling. It's a shame they didn't pull out that win against Buffalo, but this is it. This is the move they had to make to get into the playoffs. I don't think they're going to be a Super Bowl team. I agree with Dave, but I do think they're going to make the playoffs now with this move. I think
you think at 2-4 they're going to somehow figure out and make it to the playoffs.
I think they can turn it around. I really do.
I think they're going to lose this week and fall to 2-5. And they got to go to Pittsburgh in primetime. They're going to win that game?
We'll see.
I don't think Davante Adams does anything to really change the outlook of the Jets season. I'm very big on you need a play caller, right? And just because you've taken play calling duties away from Nathaniel Hackett, who in the building, what does that change? Who else do you have in your building that is somehow going to change the trajectory of what has been a disappointing offense? It's great they have Davante, but what I really think this does, I think there's just no excuses for this coaching staff. There's no more excuses for Aaron Rodgers. You have all the pieces. Granted, the O-line's not been good. You got Garrett Wilson. You got Davante Adams. You got Breece Hall. The pieces are in place. Now you have to go do it. I just don't see a way that they had good pieces before. So you add Davante. Is it somehow going to turn this offense into a top 10 unit? I don't think so, because they don't have a play caller.
I think a lot of the play calling is it's Aaron Rodgers. I think that's the thing. It's like there's certain players that are like an Aaron Rodgers where you don't need Shane Steichen, you don't need Sean McVay, you don't need Kyle Shanahan. It's more so, it would be great to have them, but it's more so about the fact that you have Aaron Rodgers under center. And the truth is, it's the rhythm that they haven't been able to get into. They just don't look in any flow. Like Breece Hall hasn't been running the way that he did last year. Rodgers can barely get on time with his guys. So it's like now you got Davante Adams and you got Garrett Wilson there and Breece Hall. These are three tremendous playmakers. So you got, somebody who's never called a football game in their life, a fantasy football manager could show up next week and be like, listen, get the ball to Davante, get the ball to Garrett Wilson, hand the ball off to Breece Hall.
If it's all about Aaron Rodgers and he's the greatest thing that's ever happened and you don't need a play caller when you have Aaron Rodgers, then why haven't they performed? Then what's it been? They just haven't been in rhythm and Davante Adams is suddenly going to get them in rhythm? I don't see it happening. It's like there were rumors that the Steelers wanted Davante Adams. What is Davante Adams going to do for the Steelers?
I think this is going to be similar to Terrell Owens going to Philadelphia when he it gave them a jump up. It gave them somebody McNabb could elevate his game with. And Davante's still playing at a high level. I really think
Davante's a stud, but Philly didn't have a Garrett Wilson when T.O. showed up.
They didn't. So, and they didn't have a Breece Hall probably either. So
put some respect on Brian Westbrook's name.
That wasn't Westbrook.
It wasn't?
It wasn't Westbrook. I think it was Deuce Staley. It may have been Deuce Staley.
Put some respect on Deuce Staley. He's not Breece Hall. But
Breece Hall, is supposed to be this electrifying player who's a top 2 or 3 back. So, I don't know. This is the big... If they beat... I think it's do or die this week. If they beat Pittsburgh, I think they change the whole course of the season. I think you're right. I think this is the week. It's like they beat Pittsburgh, they get that win. I think that propels them on a good trajectory for the rest of the season. If they lose this, they're in a really bad hole.
I think this is an interesting matchup for the Jets because, is Russell Wilson going to be the starter? We know how there's a magic about playing in a primetime game in Pittsburgh that the ball seems to just bounce the Steelers' way when they're playing in those kind of games.
Right.
Is Russell Wilson going to find a way to screw that up?
Yeah.
I think that's really what it's going to come down to. I don't see a way that the Jets...
I'm just hoping, last thing on this, I just think Rodgers, he doesn't have the swagger when you watch him play that he used to have, and I think Davante can maybe ignite that swagger and that edge that's been missing in this time in New York that Rodgers is searching for. And I think maybe everybody's going to have more of a swagger about them, and maybe they're going to find a little bit more of an identity and they can turn around the season. We'll see what happens. It'll be good for NFL fans. Listen, it's good when Aaron Rodgers is playing in meaningful games. So we want to see that happen. James, as we had the break, let's take another look at what somebody at home has to say about the Davante Adams trade in general.
This is Chris Wheat on Facebook. He says that the cancer has been cut out. That's what it means. Pearson Davis put the team first and cut a superstar. You have to respect that.
All right, everybody, welcome back to Sound Off Sports. I am joined right now by a very impressive human being. We got Jeremy Newman, the president right now of KISMIF. We're also going to say it's Keep It Simple make it fun. We also have Nevada Outdoor Adventures. There's a lot of different things for this. We're all talking about the 6th annual golf tournament coming up this weekend at Wild Horse Golf Club. But Jeremy, it's great to be with you. We have a lot to talk about. First of all, you're the president of this great organization. Tell us a little bit about what I like saying KISMIF. Sure. I think it sounds fun, but Nevada Outdoor Adventures might be more telling. Tell us what this whole foundation is really about.
Thanks, Mike. The KISMIF was created as a way in which to bridge a gap that was clearly happening here in Nevada, not just in Las Vegas, where giving individuals with any form of disability an opportunity to participate in outdoor activities. And that's really what we do. And in creating these opportunities for these adventures, it really is exciting, especially for the people that have a disability and have never done anything outside.
And let's talk about your history and your past, because I do think there's a magic to being outside in nature. Totally. And you're a guy, you have a great tan. We were talking about that off air, but it's because you meditate a lot outside. You spend a lot of time outside. And for a lot of people who have gone through tough situations, circumstances, they might be paralyzed, they might be handicapped, whatever it is, to them, I'm assuming they must feel a lot of the time, my ability to interact with the outdoors is now going to be limited. So this is a great organization, what you're doing, because you're bridging that gap for so many people.
Totally. And that's a great point. I hit the ground skydiving at 100 miles an hour. And while I was in the hospital, I had friends and coworkers coming to the hospital and encouraging me to come back to work as a strength coach. And I thought, how the heck am I going to do that? And we'll figure it out. And that was kind of like how I began to live my life. I came right back to work after I got out of the hospital for being there for 2.5 months. And I went right back to work. And then I became a wheelchair athlete.
9 months after this accident, you were back competing in triathlons all over the globe.
I wasn't competing in 9 months, but yes, you
were training.
I definitely was training, and I started doing 5K and 10K races locally just to kind of get myself together.
Let's talk about this accident, because this occurred back in 1997.
Correct.
You were skydiving. I'm assuming you had a zest for the thrill of life, right?
That would be putting it mildly, yes. And to be clear for your listeners, it wasn't an accident.
Tell us what happened that day, if you don't mind.
I was, in a nutshell, I was racing another skydiver to the ground, and I won.
And take us to that moment. What is that? Do you remember what it feels like?
I remember everything, yeah.
What does it feel like?
Well, okay. So I'm assuming you're asking me, what does it feel like when I hit the ground?
Yes.
Or, okay, got it.
Well, both.
Well,
what does it feel like?
Okay,
because I would never skydive because I'm terrified of exactly what happened to you.
What happened to me is something that I caused to happen. I'll break it down real simply. I was racing another skydiver to the ground who was much more experienced than I was. He had a smaller canopy than I did. I was much more of a beginner. I only had a couple hundred jumps. He had several thousand. And once we were under we jumped out at 13,000 feet. We did our little routine in the air, and then at 2,000 feet, we tracked away from one another and opened up our parachutes. And we're descending toward the drop zone under canopy. And it became very clear to me that he was moving faster through the air than I was, and I wasn't having that. So I did a very dangerous thing. You know how like your ceiling is composed of these tiles? That's the same thing. A parachute is composed of chambers. And I reached up and collapsed the outside lines of the chamber and made my canopy smaller. I refer to that as ego malfunction number 1. Ego malfunction number 2 was once the canopy was a little smaller, I felt like I wasn't going fast enough. And I tried to collapse the next set of cells, which in turn collapsed my entire canopy, and I'm now coming down like Wile E. Coyote under a streamer.
God.
We're taught to immediately cut away and pull your reserve chute in the event of a total malfunction like this. Well, one of many things that you and your listeners don't know about me, when I was a child, I was picked on by bullies because I had buck teeth, I had pimples, and I was chubby, and so I got picked on a lot. And you didn't want to be my friend because if you were my friend, you got picked on too. So I was kind of ostracized as a kid. And I knew that anyone that came down at the drop zone under a reserve everyone would say, what happened? Why'd you have to pull your reserve? And oftentimes people would get ostracized because they were doing something dangerous, unsafe, whatever, and they would say, don't jump with him because he's unsafe. So I'm like, okay. I knew in those milliseconds that this was happening. I was assessing everything. I knew that I needed to pull the reserve chute, but I also knew that if I did, I would likely face that same kind of scrutiny. And I didn't want that. I didn't want to repeat my childhood. This was happening in, lightning speed.
Oh my God.
And I opted for fixing the problem. That was ego malfunction number 3, and which was kicking and pulling the lines apart. And I'm definitely spinning in the direction of the twist rather. And my canopy was slowly opening. Now, on your wrist, you wear a very big watch called an altimeter. It tells you your altitude. And I'm looking at it. You're supposed to be looking at it straight on, and I'm looking at it at an angle because I'm looking up at the sky at my parachute. Well, I wasn't looking at it at the right angle, so it wasn't telling me the correct altitude.
Oh.
So I assumed that I had more time than I did. And when I realized that this is not opening up fast enough, I went to pull the reserve chute, but too late. Hit the ground.
How many times had you been skydiving before this incident? Like, was it thousands?
I should know this. No. Gosh, I wish. I wouldn't have done this if I had thousands of jumps. I had under 250.
Oh, still. Okay.
But I was
That's
experienced. Yeah. No, I was experienced enough to be solo jumping with another skydiver. Yeah.
Wow. You know what's so striking, Jeremy, is, and I'm sure our viewers and listeners are gauging this from the conversation, is how positive of a human being you have such a great mentality and outlook on life. How? What's the secret? I mean, I think a lot of people, let's not beat around the bush, a lot of people, if they had gone through this, I'm sweating just listening to this story replayed from your mouth. A lot of people would not be able to have a positive outlook on life in the world. How did you turn around, from this? Were there there must have been days that were very dark after this circumstance. How do you move forward and have this beautiful outlook on life as a human being?
Excellent question. Have you ever heard the expression, how do you eat an elephant?
No.
One bite at a time. And every day of my life since I woke up from being in a coma for a month, I have been surrounded by people that were uplifting, encouraging, inspirational. And I mean, even while I was in a coma, even while I was in intensive care, and when I was in the operating room, my mother and my sisters and my family flew to California where this happened and were there every minute. And they created this bubble around me of positivity, even while I was not in my body.
And now it must be such a privilege, because this new role you have as the president of Nevada Outdoors, of KISMIF, Keep It Simple, Make It Fun, you're the perfect guy for and when you told me this was a new position and you haven't done a lot of media, I was like, wow, you got to be, this is like your first interview, right?
Very much.
You have to be out front and center, because for every single person who's in a similar circumstance to you, you're the most perfect guy on earth to talk to, I would assume.
Okay. Yeah. But, I recognize that, I'm sitting in a wheelchair and this is how I kind of get around, and I drive with hand controls in my car. But for all intents and purposes, I mean, I get people give me the stink eye when I park in a handicap spot, because they think, how is this guy, he's not disabled. They really think that until they see my wheelchair. And then sometimes if they're actually have some words with me, they apologize for making an assumption, but I can see it in people's eyes. They have that, oh, I didn't know.
So what's the thing that everybody at home listening right now, I want to talk more about the golf tournament, but let's just focus on one nugget. I think that everybody at home, as a take home message, no matter what your circumstance in life, you have a lot of insight, how do you eat an elephant? I've never heard that one before. What's something at home, everybody, no matter their circumstance, just a nugget they can take from you as a message that can just improve their outlook, improve their happiness, improve the way that they're interacting with life? Because I love your mindset, I love your mentality, I love your confidence, and I also love the way that you interact with the world, because you could have that outlook and that perspective and that mentality, but I think it's such a beautiful thing that you're keeping up with the things that you love, and you're keeping up with engaging with the world on multiple levels. So what's something at home that you can teach our audience that we can implement? And I'm being selfish here because I want to do this as well.
I don't think it's a selfish request. I think it's a natural one. And the thing that comes up for me initially when you ask that question, it's really simple. It's we can have, be, and do anything we want. We just have to set our mind to it and not let anyone or anything get in the way of that. And oftentimes the biggest obstacle is our own self, how we talk to ourselves. And everything then comes out of that. What we're thinking, what we're saying, these are vibrations. Like a pebble in a pond creates ripples. And this is the law of attraction at its simplest.
I love it. Tell us real quickly. So everybody who wants to get involved with this organization, all the good stuff that you're doing, this is a great opportunity this weekend to come out to the 6th annual golf tournament. Tell us this Friday, a lot of excitement there. You can go to golf.kismiflv.org, or you could also go to the Nevada Outdoors.
Nevada Outdoor NV. Sorry, it's NVOutdoorAdventures.com.
Yeah. Or
.org. It's the same.
Either one, and it will take you there. What is this event going to be like? What's the special stuff going on?
We've got some really cool things that I don't want to give it too much away, because one of the we're doing some silent auctions and some really cool closest to the pin, longest drive, typical golf course giveaways and things that are typical for events and rather tournaments. However, we've got one particular individual that is a world champion long drive para golfer.
Oh, wow.
And in case some of you don't know what para golfing is, it's people with a disability. And he designed a piece of golfing equipment that gets him standing and golfing just like you or
fascinating.
Everyone else. It's amazing. I haven't used it yet. I've been introduced to him. I haven't actually met the individual yet. I'm meeting him for the first time tomorrow and going to swing a golf club for the first time ever tomorrow.
Wow.
And then on Friday is the event.
There you go.
Wow. So that's going to be there, that equipment for individuals to be able to use, because one of the holes that we're going to be doing is pick your disability. A person can do a one arm, one leg, blind, or being in a wheelchair. I will also have a stationary wheelchair that I use, an extra one that it's actually in my car.
Gotcha. I saw that coming on the way in. And the stuff that you have accomplished as an athlete, I mean, just to touch on that real quickly, after your accident, you've done so much. I mean, triathlete, across the globe, really, competing at a high level. How has that felt just after the fact, to be competing at a high level and to be, still attacking life like that, but also being an elite level athlete?
That's a terrific question. And I'll be honest with you, I never really felt like I was an elite athlete. I was just doing something that I loved doing. I fell in love with the sport of triathlon months after I hit the ground and woke up after I came out of the coma and got out of the hospital. And it just was a natural progression of my love and enthusiasm for being an athlete transferred into this sport. I mean, I was a gymnast in high school and I rode crew in college. So those were two very intense sports. Mm-hmm. And I brought that, and I'd been a strength coach for 30 years. Mm-hmm. And so I brought that passion and that enthusiasm into triathlon, and I just got better and better and better. And I got sponsors and it was kind of, there were some highlights. Yeah. Like going to my first world championships and being in the top 10, that was whoa, that was kind of cool. And then, I got better and better and better. And I really wasn't competing against the other athletes. I was competing against myself and my time. And that is what I really loved. It reminded me of my days at crew, and also being a gymnast. You are competing on a team, but it's your individual efforts are what's going to make the biggest difference.
Lastly, I want to ask you this because I think it's so fascinating. I love how in touch you are with yourself. Were you as in touch with yourself as you were talking about being bullied as a child and all that kind of stuff? Kids not wanting to associate with you because of fear that they're going to be rejected or made fun of as well. Did you have this ability to look within yourself prior to the accident, or was this something that you kind of came to terms with more reflection-wise after this accident? Because I think that would be a very interesting answer to hear.
Oof! Wow, that's a deep question, and I recognize that I understand, especially for your I was going to say your users, your listeners, that referring to it as an accident is natural. But for me, it was not an accident. I hit the ground on May 24th, 1997, because of my ego. And to directly answer your question, I would have to guess and say no. I was not as in touch with my body and certainly the outside world. I remember the life that I was living prior to hitting the ground was pretty selfish, and everything was about me and what could I get out of this situation, this scenario, this person, this whatever, rather than looking at how can I contribute and be of service. It's a very different life that I'm living today than I was back in 95 or 96.
Wow. Well, you have such a magnetic energy about you. I wasn't having a bad day. I was just like not having, it's just like, the grind of everyday life. Sometimes it just wears and tears on you. And just by talking to you and hearing your story and being in your orbit, it's a beautiful thing. And you definitely want to look up this guy, Jeremy Newman, right here, this guy that's with me right now. He's a very impressive human being. We got to have you come back in just to talk about everything. I want to hear about Jazz and your biological father and all that stuff. But make sure you guys go do this. Listen, you're going to go to nvoutdooradventures.org.com. That's going to take you to the KISMIFLV.org. It's the same thing as golf.kismiflv.org. That's the 6th annual golf tournament happening this weekend on Friday. Make sure you go check it out. And if you can't make the golf tournament, just in general, go check out everything. Keep it simple, make it fun, what it's really about. It's a great organization. As you can see, there's so many people, that are in similar situations to our great guest today. And to have this positivity, to have this outlook, it's a great thing for all humanity. And I think it's an impressive thing. And Jeremy, I'm going to try to start eating this elephant right now. I mean, I'm bite by bite. That's how you do it. You just start chewing, right?
One foot in front of the other.
That's how you do it. Thank you so much for being here. Also, just to tell you what kind of a genius this guy is, also one of the co-founders of Beachbody, which is, Tony Horton, all the great stuff he did with P90X. So you're a very special human being. Thank you so much for being with us. Any last words you want to say?
Just to remind everyone that anything you set your mind to, you can achieve. Just believe. Because in order to achieve, you must believe before you achieve it. Does that make sense?
I love it. Okay. It makes a lot of sense. All right, guys. Thank you so much. Jeremy, you're the best. We appreciate it. We'll be right back after a short break. Welcome back to Sound Off Sports, everybody. So now we're going to be talking about the most hated man in the NFL, potentially the most hated man in professional sports currently. That is Deshaun Watson. We all know the history with him and the sexual assault allegations and him having to settle a lot of cases outside of court, having to pay a fine to the NFL, a lot of different stuff that's not a good look. But the bottom line is this is a guy who was traded from the Texans to the Browns and had signed a $230 million deal. It was the richest in NFL history. It was the first and only time a contract has been fully guaranteed to that level, to that extent. And Andrew Berry, the GM there with the Browns, is really in a tight pickle, and so is head coach Kevin Stefanski, who's a two-time Coach of the Year winner. So he's a tremendous coach. It's a team that had a lot of good momentum last year, but they can't find their footing this season. James, as we're talking about Deshaun Watson right now, the fascinating thing is his play has been it's almost remarkable how awful it has been for a guy who has fallen off the face of the earth. This was a tremendous quarterback at Clemson, a guy who showed so much promise with the Houston Texans in his first go-around, and now he doesn't even look like a capable quarterback.
It's insane. The fall off from what Deshaun Watson was in his final hours in Houston to what he is even when he first started out, his first game in Cleveland, has been something that nobody could have foreseen. And I get it. When you have that many sexual misconduct accusations, that have been settled, that sort of thing is going to weigh on your conscience. And I think that has a lot to do with this, where, he's had injury issues in the past. But I think a lot of this has to do with how this suspension, how these accusations, and now the fallout of all of this has weighed on him probably mentally. And I think that is the main reason why we have seen such a fall off. It's remarkable.
Here's what I want to say. Who gives a crap about what's weighing on this dude?
No question. That's not what I'm saying.
But I'm just saying, let's talk about what's weighing on the program now. What's weighing on the franchise as a whole because of his actions, outside of football. That is the crazy thing, is now a team that was in the playoffs, that had a tremendous kind of flow last year with Joe Flacco, and you got a really good roster.
And why didn't you try to retain Joe Flacco the way he played down the stretch?
Doesn't make any sense. Now you have a backup quarterback in Jameis Winston, who I would roll with rather
everybody
than
wants to see
Watson.
play.
But the thing is, this is what happens where certain franchises, and it ties us back to what we were talking about in the beginning of the show, certain franchises are incapable of looking themselves in the mirror and saying, this is the situation, this is what we're dealing with, we have to remedy it now, and we can't just let it linger and prolong and prolong and prolong. So I don't understand why ownership, the Haslams, I don't understand why they're not thinking, I don't care what the cap hit is. I don't care what this situation is with Deshaun Watson. I know we can't really move him. We can't release him. We're tied up with him for practically 2 years, but bench him. Don't start the guy.
For what you're paying him, their hands are tied. Right,
but that doesn't mean you have to start them.
No, it doesn't mean you have to start them. Whatever their cap hit would be if they cut them would be not worth.
It would be $72.9 million. I looked it up.
It's too much. It's ridiculous. So they're stuck with him on the roster. Now, do you bench a guy that is making that kind of money to go in the direction of Jameis Winston? I mean, at this point, you're 1-5. Watson has been horrible. He's 24th in the league in passing yards, 25th in touchdowns. He has taken 31 sacks. I think the next closest is like 19. So he's already taken 12 more sacks than the next closest person in the league. He's been horrible, and it's insane just the fall off that we've seen. So I guess, yeah. I mean, try anything at this point. Go to Jameis, see what you get out of him, because you're not getting anything out of Deshaun right now.
But here's the issue. So they trade Amari Cooper, and it's basically an admission that, listen, we're not doing anything this year, and maybe they are tanking. Maybe they are thinking, you know what? Leave the dude in. We're not going to try to compete for anything this year. Let's try to get the highest draft pick we can potentially get. They already start the season with Nick Chubb on the IR. He's supposed to be coming back now in the fold, but they're not going to get anything going at this point. It's just a shame because with Joe Flacco under center last year, this was a team that was competing.
I think last year, Deshaun Watson's record was 5-1 before he had a season-ending injury. Flacco comes in, did his thing, took them to, the divisional round? They lost in the wild card.
Yeah.
To Houston, but won comeback player of the year. Had a remarkable season, and that's why it is so puzzling that Cleveland didn't try to keep him around, knowing Deshaun Watson's injury history. It's incredible what has transpired, and it couldn't have happened to a funnier team.
No.
As a Pittsburgh fan, the fact that this happened to Cleveland it makes my heart sing. Because this is all about an organization that has losing in its DNA from its conception. Art Modell moved the team out of Cleveland to Baltimore. They came back like 2 years later. Kept losing. A team that has a history of losing finally got a taste with Kevin Stefanski and Baker Mayfield at the time of what it was like to win. and they didn't know how to handle it. And so they rushed Baker out of town, and you took a shot on a quarterback with how many sexual misconduct allegations, a quarterback that hadn't played in a year, a quarterback with an injury history, gave him the biggest fully guaranteed contract in the history of the league, and it blew up in their face, and now they're basically getting their nose rubbed in it, and I couldn't happen to a better team, in my opinion.
It's hard. It's hard to picture life as a Browns fan. It's hard to picture life as a teammate of Deshaun Watson. I think a lot of this is like, just from a locker room standpoint, who wants to protect this guy? Who wants to It's a hard situation. So it just, to me, it's like the analogy I would use. It's like, imagine you own a restaurant and you have all these great dishes and all these great entrees you can make, and you have so many tremendous ingredients. You have great tomato sauce, you have great fresh vegetables and starches, but you're forced to use chicken that is, let's just say, poisonous, or chicken that would actually, like, it's old, it's mildewy, it's like you can't consume it, and you can't serve it to customers. But you got all these other great ingredients. You got Myles Garrett, you got David Njoku, you got like all these great little things, Nick Chubb, all these beautiful things you put on your plate, but you still got to put that rotten chicken on your plate and serve it to guests. Why do you have to do that? Why do you have to put the chicken on the plate? Why can't you just...
Because you paid how much money for this chicken that
so nobody's going to come to the restaurant. Like, it's just the sunken cost fallacy. It makes no sense. Now you're going to
this has probably been a failing restaurant for its entire conception, right?
You're going to punish your customers and make them eat rotten chicken now? Make them a dish without the rotten chicken.
That's what failing businesses do. They got the taste of a little bit of success. They got that big playoff win over Pittsburgh with Baker Mayfield. They saw they had the roster, didn't think they had the quarterback, ran Baker out of town, and then just made a massive, massive mistake on Deshaun Watson, and it blew up in their face because he has, even if he played just middle of the road, if he was just right, an average QB, we might not be speaking about this topic as as harshly as we're speaking about it, but he has played nowhere close to what this contract is.
No, he might be the worst quarterback in the league. I mean, we're talking about that level of play.
This is going to go down, and when you think about what they gave up to get him too, what was it, 3 first-round picks and then some more picks? Plus, we're going to pay you all this money. It's the worst transaction probably
in professional sports.
I was going to say NFL, but yeah, you might be right about just professional sports in general.
Yeah, it's awful. But let's hear what people at home are having to say about this, because I know people want to definitely give their 2 cents on the Deshaun Watson issue.
Hey, Mike Davis. Big fan, man. Big fan. Deshaun Watson does not give Cleveland the best chance to win. Cleveland does not have a team. Nick Chubb is still on IR. Amari Cooper is going to Buffalo. Barely even hear Jerry Jeudy's name. Barely even see David Njoku.
All right, thank you so much, Dave. So, yeah, I mean, he's right. I mean, last year with Flacco, Cooper had a tremendous year. Njoku had a tremendous season. You got Myles Garrett, who's the reigning defensive player of the year. So you got all these great pieces. You got a perfect plate for that entree that I was talking about, but you got a quarterback who is god-awful. I mean, let's just be real. And so
the main course is trash.
And they're still, I mean, they're still able to technically compete with some teams to a degree. You know what I mean?
They should not be this bad. 1-5? They're better than 1-5.
I think they are, especially with the coaching staff that they have with Schwartz and Stefanski. But it's interesting stuff, and it's the worst fall from grace I have seen from a professional athlete in terms of just on the field production. And I think this is a testament. This is really a story that it exemplifies the mental toughness that it takes to be an elite athlete, because the off the field issues have just completely sunken this guy's ability to do anything. And there's a lot of athletes who have off the field issues and it doesn't matter. We've seen it with your boy Antonio Brown. We've seen it with,
ABs weren't this serious.
But there's people that have,
granted, he had
distractions,
right?
And we listen. We got
AB had some things, but
we don't know how much what is true, what's not
level.
true. Accusations, things settle outside of court. There's accusers still coming out of the woodwork right now.
There was one that came out just
recently.
in September, and this is a point I wanted to make, where you have this new accuser came out September 2024. Best case scenario for Cleveland, he gets suspended. Deshaun Watson does. That way, they can void his guarantees in starting in 2025.
Yeah, I mean
that is best case scenario for Cleveland. So if you're the Browns organization, are you almost like take a look at this guy?
No, you want him to go to prison.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, if he gets suspended, that's best case scenario for the entire organization.
100%. I would be if I was the owner of the Browns, if I was Kevin Stefanski, I'd hire a private eye to try to get him imprisoned. That's just the facts. I think even Andrew Brandt,
that would be the biggest bailout for the Cleveland. Right?
Andrew Brandt, a former executive, a great, analyst, reporter when it comes to NFL money types of stuff, he was saying that's what they should be praying for, exactly what you said. So I don't know. We'll see what happens, but it seems like he continues to find ways to settle outside of court and to make it a non-legal issue that's going to really put him in jeopardy of his freedoms. But it's fascinating, and I think this is going to be one of those things that is studied for the course of time when it comes to the precedents that this is going to set in terms of fully guaranteed money, write-ins, all those types of things. From a sports a sports law perspective, this is a fascinating case study. But what I'm also just trying to say is from a psychology standpoint, I think the mental toughness, the sports psychology behind this, it's fascinating how much it has zapped him of his ability to be a player. It's almost like he was Superman, and now Krypton and kryptonites all around him, and he cannot perform anymore. Let's hear what another person had to say, though, because we have a lot of callers with this stuff.
With quarterback Watson, to me, that's going to be a 50-50 chance. Still too early. We're only going into 7 weeks of football. But I really don't even see a chance of Watson taking his team to the Super Bowl this year.
All right. Thank you so much, John, for that call. So, it's puzzling stuff. It's sad for Browns fans. It's a sad situation for all the victims. It's a sad thing overall. But
from a football perspective, let's take the contracts out of it. You're looking at Deshaun Watson, and you're looking at Jameis Winston. We're taking contracts out of it. They're getting paid the same thing. Who gives the Browns the best chance from that perspective?
I think Jameis Winston.
I think you have to at least take a look at him.
Yeah,
I mean, granted, there is a contract involved here, a pretty damn massive one. In that case, I understand their hands are tied. They're probably going to roll with Deshaun. Got it. Why not take a shot on Jameis? I never really understood why he never got another starting opportunity after Tampa Bay. He rode the bench in New Orleans, riding the bench in Cleveland. Yeah, he threw a lot of picks, but he also threw a lot of touchdowns. If I'm Cleveland, I think you have to at least take a shot at it, unless, like you said, they don't care and they just want to tank the season.
Right, and that's what as the more that this lingers and prolongs, I'm thinking that's what they're thinking. Because Jameis has always been a player's player. Players like the dude. He's got a great personality. He's got a huge arm. It's a distraction to have Deshaun Watson under center now. It's just, if you're trying to win, no matter what the committed costs are, you have to do what's best for each and every Sunday. It doesn't matter what you owe him. You can't get out of it either way. So just give up on the fact that you feel like he's going to magically turn around, because he's not. So just move forward, let him sit the bench and collect that paycheck, and let him feel like crap as he does it, and put yourself in a position to win on Sunday. To me, it's actually the simplest, question in the world. I don't even see how it's...
You don't think it's a
I don't even think
discussion?
I really don't. Unless you're trying to tank. That's
Right.
the only reason I could come up with at this point.
I understand the politics of the contract and everything, but if you are trying to win, you got to go with Jameis.
Amari Cooper goes on IG and says, before the trade or after the trade, move or rust. I mean, his teammates don't want to. Do you think his teammates want to play with this guy? This is about business. It's about money. These guys with incentives to make more money with more yards, more receptions, more touchdowns. Do you think anybody in the building wants to be playing with this guy?
A guy with how many was it? It was like 30 plus, was it not?
But I'm saying beyond the accusations, beyond the off the field nonsense, if he's not performing, it's not putting anybody.
No, take that away. They still don't want to play. They still don't want to play with him.
Right.
But then you compile the fact that he can't play with the fact that he has all these sexual assault allegations. No, I mean, nobody would. Nobody in their right mind would.
It doesn't make any sense. Everybody's play and impact has significantly dropped. Njoku's has dropped. Cooper, having the worst season he's probably ever had, gets shipped off because he doesn't want to be there. Everything looks bad. The offensive line's not even as bad as it truly is. A lot of those sacks are his fault.
And that's what I'm saying, because they have players up front.
Yes.
The Browns have a lot of players up front.
They have good offensive line. The Joel Bettino guy, he's good. Jedrick Wills was a first-round pick. They have pretty capable line.
That O-line didn't just suddenly fall off.
No,
right?
He's holding the ball. He's making everybody look worse.
What I think, just moving away from Deshaun Watson and looking at this as I'm laughing at the Cleveland Browns organization, what makes this situation even funnier, that they, on top of the fact that they kind of threw away their window to compete for things that are significant, Baker Mayfield, the guy you ran out of town, is now down in Tampa balling, looking like a top 12 quarterback in the league. That's the guy you ran out of town, the guy you paid 200 and how many mil guaranteed, gave up 3 first-round picks to get. He comes in here, and now he's stinking up the joint. Cleveland's getting everything that they deserve.
I think we were talking about earlier how the Raiders should potentially think about trading a Max Crosby or something like that, which I am not behind. Just want to state that for the record. Myles Garrett should be traded. That's who should be going to the Detroit Lions, is Myles Garrett. They should be dumping. If I'm Andrew Berry, GM of the Cleveland Browns, everybody's being traded. Because you're handcuffed in such a bad position right now with this contract. Dump the next 3 years. Get rid of Myles Garrett. Get rid of, every piece you can get rid of. Just start dumping stuff and build for after this disaster. It's almost like a natural disaster came into the picture, and you just got to build for the future and get rid of everything.
Well, my question is, and maybe you have this, I don't have it here on me. Assuming Deshaun Watson, they don't trade him, they don't cut him, he doesn't get suspended by the league. When is this contract
So
over
he's
with?
29 years old. He's making $45 million this year, and for the next 2 years, he's making that same amount of money. It's fully guaranteed for the next 2 years, meaning his cap hit is at $72.9 million. So there's not a lot you can really do.
Their hands are tied until basically what year? 2026?
At least for the next 2 more years after this.
Okay,
So after this year, you got 2 more years that you're dealing with a lot of crap.
got it. So like 2027.
So to me, start getting bad. Get bad and try to start building, because you're not doing anything right now. Myles Garrett, before he hits 30, trade him. Get some picks, start getting assets in the
Myles
mix.
Garrett's another one
and
you
start
get quite
building
a few picks for.
And you just start building, send them to Detroit. Start building, and you start hitting on those guys the same way the Lions hit on their draft picks, from Brian Branch to Jack Campbell to Sewell to all those guys. You start getting guys in these rounds, and you start just making things work. And the next thing you know, by the time the Watson stuff's over with, you got a really good roster.
Well, and as you're sitting here talking about it, at what point, if you're Cleveland, do you just bite the bullet, eat the cap hit, and cut him, or trade him, try to dump his salary on side? Well, they're not going to be able to, get rid of that entire contract. But if you could get rid of, I saw an article today, if you could get Deshaun Watson and like a second or third round pick, would you do that?
If I own a franchise, I'm not bringing.
I'm not going anywhere near him. But if I'm Cleveland, if you could trade him, would you do it?
Oh, I would have.
And get rid of some of and dump some of that salary.
The way I would run my business, I would put him on the streets. I would pay him and not even let him come in the building. His fob doesn't work anymore.
You would just cut him.
Yeah, whatever
and
the
just eat that cap hit.
Honestly, I would, because I think it's just a distraction. It makes everything worse. I'm a realist. I try to live in truth. I think this is somebody. It's like it's like if your girlfriend breaks up with you and you keep living your next 2 or 3 years of your life thinking that she's going to come back, or you break up with your girlfriend because you think she's Gisele Bündchen combined with the, Mother Teresa. She's got the heart of Mother Teresa and she looks like Gisele Bündchen, right? You think she's the greatest girl on the face of the earth. This is God's gift to earth. She's the greatest human being of all time. Well, if she's like that when she plays for the Houston Texans, great. But now she's on the Cleveland Browns and all of a sudden she doesn't look like Gisele Bündchen, and more importantly, she doesn't have the heart of Mother Teresa anymore. So now she's got zero redeeming qualities, this individual. Well, what am I going to do? Am I still going to stay in this relationship because I'm dreaming of her returning to her old ways when she used to play for the Houston Texans? Or I'm going to say, hey, listen, you're an awful human being. My life is a lot worse with you in it. I don't care if I already have a kid with you, if you own half my house, I have all these commitments that are already tied to you. It's over. There's nothing, you're bringing everything down. So to me, it's like you just got to get out of the situation and move forward. You can't keep thinking that this person's going to transform and change into a different human being. You might as well just get the steps going, move the process forward so you can eventually get back into a good situation. But if you're just living like, okay, I guess the next 3 years of my life are just going to suck. Like, I mean, who wants to live like that?
No, I agree with you.
So it's like, okay, what do you need to take? I owe you $72.9 million. First of all, you're a billionaire. Oh, I owe you this? Okay, well, you know what? How great would this be? Go take whatever I owe you, leave, goodbye, your fob doesn't work anymore. And guess what? Maybe the locker room's going to transform. Maybe the team's going to start playing better. And it sucks that you got to pay somebody who's not even allowed in the building.
Right.
But it's better than putting everybody in this awkward position of like, well, we owe him. It's like the sunken cost fallacy. It's like when you buy bananas at the grocery store. You buy a bunch of bananas. You go to Trader Joe's. You buy like 7 bananas. It costs like 11 cents. Okay? It's nothing, right? But then you get these bananas in your house, and in one day, they go from green to brown. And you're like, well, damn. It's like, what am I going to... I'm not going to make banana bread because I don't do that. So it's like, I've no use for these bananas, right? Well, you could just say, listen, like, I'm going to throw them in the garbage so I can move on with my life and actually use counter space and have more counter space for something that I'm actually going to enjoy and use. Or you can just let them sit in your bowl and be like, well, I'm never going to eat these brown bananas, but I paid 11 cents for these bananas. Like I can't throw them in the trash because that's wasting food. Well, you know what? You already spent the 11 cents. You can't get the 11 cents back. It's over. So you might as well just move on. Who's got a banana for me?
Deshaun Watson is the girlfriend that got fat. He is the banana that went brown. That's the takeaway here. Am I correct in this?
I'm starting to get delirious.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen. I don't even know what I'm saying anymore.
But I agree with you. I think that if you're Cleveland, are you just going to live with this? And it's not like he's just a good guy who happens to not be playing well.
Right.
We're pretty sure not a good person. They're allegations that have been settled out of court, and I get it. We're pretty sure that this is not a good person.
Right.
And he's also not playing well. So are we just going to sit here and live with this for the next how many more years? Or do we just rip the Band-Aid off, eat the cap hit, and start trying to and maybe we catch lightning in a bottle with a cheap quarterback. You know what I mean? With a guy like Jameis, maybe. Or a guy like Flacco. Or a guy, a guy of that ilk.
100%. But here's why it won't happen. Because of egos. Because the owner doesn't want to admit he's wrong. The GM doesn't want to admit he's wrong. Because if you do that, then it's like saying, I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, I screwed up. It's my fault, But that's the best thing to do. If you cared less about yourself and cared more about the franchise, that's what you would do. You wouldn't be thinking about the ego hit, what it's going to say about your reputation, what it's going to say about your record as a GM, as an owner. You wouldn't punish you're punishing everybody. You're punishing the team. You're punishing the fans. You're punishing people that work in the vendors, in the snack bars. And you're punishing every single person because you want to do right by a guy who does not deserve to be treated right.
If you're the Cleveland Browns, there is a dark cloud over that stadium. It's Deshaun Watson, how he's playing, the allegations, and the contract. That's the dark cloud. You cut Deshaun Watson, we still got to pay him a lot of money and we're cap strapped for a couple years. But the sun starts to come out a little bit. It's a new day, It's a clean slate. And honestly, the more we're sitting here talking about it, the more I think that's the move. Just cut him. Get rid of him. Yeah, it sucks that, we made the mistake of paying him, but let's admit fault right now, and let's move on sooner rather than later instead of sitting here and letting this bad situation compound.
Life is short, you're either growing or you're dying. And that franchise is dying. As we head to break, James, let's hear one more thought from one of our lovely fans at home.
This is Sam Carroll on Facebook. He says, best chance to win the first draft pick.
All right, well, welcome back, everybody, to Sound Off Sports. Mike Davis here. So it's kind of funny. I'm walking into the office the other day, million things going on. And my good buddy, my pal, my teammate over here, producer James Edward Barrickman the fourth, he's all excited about this thing he sees online regarding quarterbacks in the NFL. And it's not about their production. It's not about how, their analytics, next gen stats. It has nothing to do with any of those types of things. It has nothing to do with, eye test football guy stuff. No. He's consumed with the sexiest quarterbacks in the NFL. This is the topic he wanted to use as we're entering into sink or swim right now, James. So what consumed you so much with this?
Before we get into this, I would like to give a big shout out to our editor, Jess, for putting me onto this list. In the first place.
I think he was excited.
I'm glad that she put me onto this. I've been intrigued by this entire list, and I have a lot of questions. If you're ready to hear this top 12,
so there's a top 12. So okay, which outlet is doing this?
This is from People.
People magazine. They always do Sexiest Man of the Year covers. Right. That's something that they do. So they put together a list of the 12 sexiest quarterbacks in the NFL.
Yeah. Can you guess who number 1 is?
Joe Burrow.
Yes, number 1. Let's go down this list.
Okay.
Right? So, number 1, you have Joe Burrow. Okay, that's an easy one. That's a layup.
We all know that.
Number 2, Caleb Williams, who I thought was a surprise. And we'll read this whole list off, and then I'll give my thoughts about this list. Russell Wilson, number 3.
Okay.
Cowboys quarterback Dak Prescott, number 4. Justin Herbert, Chargers quarterback, number 5. Number 6, Kansas City Chiefs quarterback Patrick Mahomes. Brock Purdy, San Francisco 49ers quarterback at number 7. Josh Allen, Bills quarterback at number 8. Jalen Hurts, number 9. Derek Carr, 10. Jordan Love, 11. Joe Flacco, 12. So, if I may.
12. All right, listen. Audubon Joe. I love Joe Flacco. There's not a bigger Joe Flacco fan than me. He's not one of the 12 sexiest quarterbacks in the NFL. I'm just gonna.
What is Caleb Williams doing on this list?
He's
at
top
2.
12. He's top 12. There's people on that
Why?
list. There's people on that list that should not be on the list.
It's not. My biggest gripe with this is that Jalen Hurts is number 9.
He's hot.
You can name.
Coming from.
You can name 8 better-looking quarterbacks than Jalen Hurts.
Jalen Hurts is good looking.
I'll give you Joe Burrow at 1. But Jalen Hurts shouldn't be any lower on this list than number 2. Who's better looking than Jalen Hurts other than Joe Burrow among quarterbacks in the NFL?
You're putting me on the spot. I don't think about this.
It's not Patrick Mahomes.
No.
Justin Herbert's a good looking dude, but he's not better looking than Jalen Hurts.
I think Russell
Dak
Wilson.
Prescott?
Russell Wilson's a good looking guy.
Russ a good looking guy. Corniest dude you'll ever meet, but yeah, he's good looking, and that's why he's pulling Sierra.
Right.
So Russ at 3, I'm
Josh
fine with.
Allen.
Caleb Williams is just so high.
Josh Allen's dating, Haley, whatever.
Yeah. I can't remember off the top of my head, but she is a very prominent young woman.
She's, so she's he's got it like a boyish charm to him, kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, Josh Allen's a good looking dude.
Yeah.
Right. He's not better looking than Jalen Hurts. I can't believe he's number 9. That's my biggest takeaway.
Are you
from
more
this
worked
entire...
up about this or the Deshaun Watson stuff, James?
No, and I am embarrassed to say this. I'm more worked up about this Jalen Hurts number 9 on the top 12 sexiest quarterback.
I have another guy who should probably be higher up, right? Trevor Lawrence, right?
Yeah, Trevor Lawrence. He's got those beautiful blonde locks. He looks like Prince Charming from the Shrek movies.
Yeah. Daniel Jones is not a bad looking guy either, right? Kay Adams, there was the talk.
All right. I'd be very disappointed in Kay Adams if she was dating
That's
Daniel
your
Jones.
girl.
I know. Love Kay Adams. But thankfully it was just it was all jokes.
Listen, we all know if Brady was still playing, it'd be Brady.
Brady would be on this list, no question about it. I just want to talk with whoever came up with this list. I don't like Jordan Love.
Yeah, he's a little weird looking.
Derek Carr. All right, maybe he's top 12. Like Flacco, I think you're not giving Flacco enough credit.
Really?
Yeah. I think Flacco,
all dark and handsome kind of thing.
In his old age, he's got a little bit of a silver fox look to him. Yeah. You know what I mean?
I think Dak's a good looking guy. I think it's Burrow.
It's 1. Burrow, and then Jalen Hurts. I didn't come up with my own list.
You didn't?
No, I didn't. I should have. Or else I could have better answers for you. But Jalen Hurts not number 2 on this list is crazy to me.
All right. No Aaron Rodgers either.
That makes sense.
You think?
Yeah, I don't think Rodgers would be on that list.
Interesting. All right, listen, this is the stuff that we talk about.
Tua?
Is Tua is he
Tua's not on the list.
Is he a good you think he's
I think Tua's a good looking dude. What's funny about that?
No, I haven't really. I just kind of know who's obvious to me.
Okay.
Hurts, Burrow. It makes sense. They're, Wilson. Those are guys that are next level looking guys. So I haven't really been doing my power rankings for this, but you might have a future, and this could be your niche.
People should consult me before they come up with this.
Who's got the best hair in the NFL? Because you take a lot of pride in your haircuts. You go to this barber.
Are we talking quarterbacks?
You only go to one specific barber. You have like a whole
I go to my man Jay over at In the Cut. Right. He's the only person I've gone to.
So who's got, because I think Jalen's got a good cut. Right?
Jalen's got a great cut.
Yeah.
I think
Burrow's got great hair. He's got the best.
Burrow's got great hair. If we're talking haircut versus just hair,
yeah.
I mean, Trevor Lawrence has great hair. You know what I mean?
Burrow's got really good hair, though.
Yeah, Joe Burrow's got he's got everything working for him.
listen, you get a little bit of everything here on Sin City, not Sin City Beat. We did a lot of shows today. Sound Off Sports. Yeah, we talk about everything. We talk about the big news in sports and the little news in sports. The sports that nobody's talking about, like power ranking the looks of NFL quarterbacks, is something that we do now here as well. So, James, a lot of great stuff today. Anything else you want to talk about?
No, I think we've talked quite enough.
We talked a lot. We want to thank Dave, John, all the great people at home that gave us a buzz. Listen, if you want to call us and tell us who you think the hottest quarterback in the NFL is, feel free to do that, because this is going to be now a running joke probably throughout the show and the course of its history. So give us a buzz. And make sure you follow us on social media, on Facebook at Fox5 Vegas, because we're going to be always posting great topics, and we always want to hear from you here.
Jared Goff, not to totally interrupt you. No Jared Goff. I'm as you're sitting here talking about it, there's no Jared Goff on this list, and that's another one. But here, I'll let you finish up. We'll send this thing off.
No. Jared Goff is a good-looking guy. You love his wife or his fiance.
Yeah, Kristen Harper. She's amazing.
Oh, you just know.
I follow her on Instagram.
Do you see how he knows that name? Like, boom.
I follow her on Instagram. She's
that's what we should do. The WAGs power rankings. That
the WAGs,
wives and girlfriends.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like the NFL like Brittany Mahomes. You start ranking all those types of people.
We could bring in
Taylor Swift. You put everybody in the mix. Sierra.
It's a good idea. Yeah, it's a great idea.
We'll
have to do that one of these days. We'll bring in maybe Mariah and Paloma can come in and help us out with that one.
They can rank us. We could do that. All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining us here on Sound Off Sports. For my co-host, James Everett Barrickman, the fourth Jared Goff's lover. I'm Mike Davis. We can't wait to hear from you. We'll see you next time here in the Den at Fox 5 Studios.